Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are happy to have you here, and it's going to be a wonderful day. Who watched the Super Bowl? Was it great or was it great? I mean, I hadn't seen a Super Bowl like that in a very long, well, I guess we've seen two competitive Super Bowl games, but this one was really good. And for once again, the underdog won, and Brady left with his tails tucked. Oh, I'm sorry if I have my Northeastern friends. We had some good wagers out there at the place where I watched the Super Bowl, and it turned out pretty well. Well, for those who were rooting for the Eagles, that is. But, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Before I start, I want to make a few comments, however. We have a lot of folks that watch the live cast, the live show on Facebook Live, and we have a whole lot of people who also watch it on Blog Talk Radio. And I have a favor. We get a lot of emails, right? And we have people giving suggestions as far as topics that they want us to cover. And they give us stories, and they give us history, and they give us a whole lot of things. So first, I want to thank you guys for doing all of that. This is a producer of one. So all that email that you get, I have to scan through it and read the particular subjects that you want covered. A lot of times, some people would send me some very, very long proses, sometimes upwards of 10 pages. So what I'd like to beg of all of those, remember, this is your show. Politics Done Right belongs to you. The reason we have Politics Done Right is because we do not believe the mainstream media is doing justice to the American people, and we want to have a more interactive form of communication between news delivery and what's going on in a forum where everyone can participate and everyone can have their voices heard. Specifically, there are times you're watching your news program and you want to say, why didn't you say X, Y, or Z? Well, you have a platform to do that. You have a platform to do it here, and you can be guaranteed that this platform would be used to further move the sort of information, to further move your thoughts, to further move what you think needs to be done. But when you're sending me things to cover, or when you're sending me news, or when you're sending me things, remember I have to do that research before I throw it out here as well, because I'm not going to give folks anything that is just sort of pulled out of the air or anything like that. So if you could be as concise as possible when you're sending me information, and if at all possible as well, if you have sourcing, please just don't tell me that the sky is going to be red tomorrow. Tell me how you figured out the sky is going to be red tomorrow, so that we can be accurate in what we're putting out. The one thing we don't want to be is like the mainstream media, which doesn't do a lot of the homework. I'm not talking about the good reporting that's been done on the print media recently, both from, let's say, New York Times and the Washington Post and some other less famous publications, if you will, that has given quite a bit of information. But we want to serve you, and not only do we want to serve you, we want to ensure that your voices are heard. So for those who are just chiming in, I see a whole lot of new people chiming in. Remember, this is your program. When you're sending me things that you want me to talk about, remember that is info@politicsdoneright.com. Or whenever you want to tell me whether you think the program or particular thing sucked or not, or whatever it is that you want to say, just please don't be too wordy, because I have to go through a whole lot of these. I listen to what you have to say because, again, this is your program. So what is the program going to be about today? Today, the title of the program is it time for Republicans and everyone else to boycott the Republican Party? This is based on a story today called "Boycott the GOP." It's a new article in the Atlantic, and I kind of dissect that article and kind of going to put some of our stuff in there as well. Folks, do remember that this is a call-in show. I would love for you to call in and put your voice on air as well. We're very nice around here. No thought is discounted. If you have something to say, again, this is your program, and we want you heard. No matter what, whether you agree with me or not, I don't care. I want to make sure that folks feel that they're heard. I think that is a beginning process in us moving forward as a country, as a united country, allowing everybody to be able to feel free enough to say their piece without the concern that somebody's going to jump on them because they have some different thought process. I am a very progressive, liberal, left-wing type of that's my thought process. I definitely don't believe that is the only thought process, nor is that the only thought process that I entertain. I like to entertain all points of view because I tell you better. I've learned and I've grown from not only the points of view that I hold, but from quite a few others, both on the left, the right, and everywhere in between. So anyhow, subtitle of the program is "There Must Be a Catharsis of the Republican Party, Else It Dies." You might want to say, oh, wow, let's just let it die. No, you don't want to say that. I want there to be a strong Republican Party. I want there to be a strong Green Party. I want there to be a strong Libertarian Party. I want as many strong parties as we can get. Because the truth of the matter is the fusion of ideas is what makes one's success. The fusion of ideas is what makes one successful. And that's what we want. Anyhow, for months, many have been wondering at what point would the sensible folks within the Republican Party buck the train wreck that is Donald Trump and the Tea Party irrational right-wing flank of their party. When? Where? We are over a year into the Trump presidency. Our international prestige is in tatters. A derelict media fails to inform the public of the domestic decimation that is occurring behind the scenes in a palpable manner. There is only one solution to get the country back on track. The moral and existential responsibility of every American is to boycott the GOP until it puts the country before the ideologically irrational. And that is an absolute statement, my friends. Until we get to the point where we're no longer ideologically irrational. I mean, there are good thoughts on the conservative side. There are good thoughts on the liberal side. And 281, I see your call on the line, or we will come to you right after the blog of the week. Now, folks, what are your thoughts? We want you to call in 281, or rather 646-716-5812. 646-716-5812 and discuss these issues. We want to take them seriously. We want to take your thoughts seriously. Please do remember to on Facebook to go to Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies, and please like the page. Likewise, please go to our Twitter. That is Egberto Willies on Twitter. Go follow that Twitter as well. Folks, this is how we grow the alternative media, which is in these times a necessity for us if we are ever to get out of the morass that we're in right now. But folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the weekly blog post. The title of it is pretty darn similar to what we had before. Many believe a boycott of the Republican Party is essential to save the country. Are you tired? Are you tired of the clown cart that has become our government, run by a man who has no business being in charge by any corporation, let alone the most prosperous country on the planet? There is only one solution left to rid our people of the ever-growing damage Donald Trump is inflicting on the nation. For those who are real conservatives and find a home in the Republican Party, it is essential that they boycott the party if they want to save their party. An article in The Atlantic written by Jonathan Rauch and Benjamin Wittes titled "Boycott the Republican Party" laid out the reality in no uncertain terms. The piece starts with statements from a man the Washington Post interviewed after the Virginia election in November of 2017. Remember that quasi-landslide we had there when we all thought it was going to be a close election? Didn't turn out that way because, you know what? People are really getting fed up. Will it continue? We hope. But for it to continue, we all, activists and parties, have got to do their work. But here's what the piece in the Washington Post said. It said, a few days after the Democratic electoral sweep this past November in Virginia, New Jersey, and elsewhere, the Washington Post asked a random Virginia man to explain his vote. The man, a marketing executive named Taryn Beasley, replied that his calculus was simply to refuse to calculate. It could have been Dr. Seuss or the Berenstain Bears on the ballot, and I would have voted for them if they were a Democrat, he said. I might do more analysis in other years, but in this case, no. No one else gets any consideration because what's going on with the Republicans, I am talking about Trump and his cast of characters, is stupid. 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 I can't say stupid enough times. That's what he is saying. I've never bought into parties myself. I've really never bought into parties and agree with Christopher Hitchens that partisanship makes one stupid. I mean, when you're a real hardcore partisan, no matter what your party does is right. I don't abide by that. I'm in the Democratic Party myself, and I don't abide by that tenet. In fact, I give the Democratic Party as it is hell when they need to be given hell. And otherwise, I wish more Republicans would do the same with their own party. I don't believe being a member of a party that represents the aggregation of one's values is the problem, though, as stated in the article, this is what the article following states. The Republican Party as an institution has become a danger to the rule of law and the integrity of our democracy. The problem is not just Donald Trump. It's a larger political apparatus that made a conscious decision to enable him. In a two-party system, nonpartisanship works only if both parties are consistent democratic actors. If one of them is not predictably so, the space for nonpartisan evaporates. We are thus driven to believe that the best hope of defending the country from Trump's Republican enablers and of saving the Republican Party from itself is to do as Taryn Beasley did, vote mindlessly and mechanically against Republicans at every single opportunity until the party either rights itself or implodes, very preferably the former. So says the article. I am one who believes that at minimum we need two viable parties, but preferably more. I want to see the Green Party succeed. I want to see the different independent parties as well succeed. The Libertarian Party. I want these guys to be strong contenders where we can actually listen to these folks and take the best ideas of them all. But I agree that the piece says every thinking American must do in these times, and this is what the piece continues to say. Lots of people vote a straight ticket. Some do so because they are partisan. Others do so because of a particular policy position. Many pro-lifers, for example, will not vote for Democrats, even pro-life Democrats, because they see the Democratic Party as institutionally committed to the slaughter of babies. We are proposing something different. We are suggesting that in today's situation, people should vote a straight Democratic ticket, even if they are not partisan and despite their policy views. They should vote against Republicans in a spirit that is, if you will, pre-partisan and pre-political. Their attitude should be the rule of law is a threshold value in American politics, and a party that endangers this value disqualifies itself, period. In other words, under certain peculiar and deeply regrettable circumstances, sophisticated, independent-minded voters need to act as if they were dumbass partisans. So says the article in The Atlantic. The authors of the piece explained why two writers that aren't liberal are taking this stance. And they say as follows. For us, this represents a counsel of desperation, so allow us to step back and explain what drove us to what we call oppositional partisanship. To avoid misunderstanding, here are some things we're not saying. First, although we worry about extremism in the GOP, that is not a reason to boycott the party. We agree with political analysts who say that Republicans veered off center early and more sharply than Democrats. But recently, the Democrats have made up for lost time by moving rapidly leftward. As you can see, these guys are no liberals or no progressives, because if they think what has happened to the to the Democratic Party is a big shift to the left, I don't know what they're smoking. A big shift to the left would mean single payer, would mean the nationalization of banks, which I also support, would also mean the nationalization of utilities, which again I also support, because I think all things that require Americans to be able to move and be successful does require that we the people control them. I am a true Democrat. I am a true person who believe in free enterprise. Free enterprise can only exist if we have a level playing field. You cannot have a level playing field if the access to finances through the doors are private bankers who have all the prejudices of society at large, and therefore some things must be controlled by we the people. You cannot have real free enterprise if the sources of energy, if the sources of these other items are controlled by a select few people who can then ask for ransom to use these things that will make you successful. And those are the reasons why I believe certain particular sectors of our economy, of our free economy, should in fact be nationalized. So I don't know, and I can tell you one thing: most Democrats do not believe what I just said. So, and I'm talking about most of the Democrats today. So for anyone thinking that the Democratic Party has moved excessively to the left, the Democratic Party has not moved near they have not moved near leftwards as they must if they really want a free enterprise economy where everybody really has free access to success. But recently the Democrats have made up for lost time, is what they said. I don't know what they're smoking. In any case, under normal but they did at least come out with the right conclusion. In any case, under normal circumstances, our response to radicalization within a party should be to support sane people within that party. Nor is our oppositional partisanship motivated by the belief that Republican policies are wrong-headed. Republicans are a variegated bunch, and we agree with many traditional GOP positions. We are horrified by the president. To be sure, we are horrified by much that Trump has said and done, but many members of his party are likewise horrified. Republicans such as Senators John McCain, Bob Corker, and Jeff Flake and Ben Sasse, as well as former governors Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush, have spoken out and conducted themselves with integrity. I beg to disagree. If they were conducting themselves with integrity, they would be out on the talk shows every single day, pointing out why these guys are not conservatives, why these guys are really wrong for the Republican Party, and why these guys are destroying the Republican Party. These authors give Jeb Bush, Ben Sasse, Corker, McCain a pass. But at least again, they came to the right conclusion. Abandoning an entire party means abandoning many brave and honorable people. We should not do that based simply on rot at the top. So, why have we come to regard the GOP as an institutional a danger? In a nutshell, it has proved unable or unwilling, mostly unwilling, to block assaults by Trump and his base on the rule of law. Those assaults were they to be normalized would pose existential, not incidental, threats to American democracy. So far, so good for these authors, except for it shows that they're really conservative Republicans that wrote this article. So conservative Republicans, you should have the okay. They call themselves independent, but these guys are conservative Republicans who wrote this article. The authors point out that Trump turned a blind eye to the Russian corrupting our democracy as they disrupted our electoral process. They based their advice on the following syllogism. The GOP has become the party of Trumpism. Trumpism is a threat to democratic values and the rule of law. That means the Republican Party is a threat to democratic values, and the rule of law. Same thing in a mathematical equation, right? And as such, one who wants the country to survive as a body of democratic constitutional laws must not vote for that party. If you love the country, if you love the Constitution, you cannot in due process vote for a party that is destroying what folks have worked for, what folks have died for, what folks have worked to change to make that elastic clause in the Constitution not only serve a select few, but the vast majority of the American citizenry. The authors end with a significant statement, and it goes as follows. We understand, too, that many imperfections of the Democratic Party. Its left is extreme, its center is confused, and it has its share of bad apples. What a description of the Democratic Party by these two guys who want you to believe they're independent but have already shown that they're really conservative Republicans. The center of the Democratic Party is nothing more than the mid-flank of the Republican Party, period. No questions asked. Let's be clear on that. We understand, too, the many imperfections of the Democratic Party's left is extreme, its center is confused, and it has its share of bad apples. But the Democratic Party is not a threat to our democratic order. This is why we are rising above our independent predilections and behaving like dumbass partisans. It's why we hope many smart people will do the same. So says the authors of this well-written article that has a few partisan jabs unnecessarily so against the Democratic Party in general. The article took courage to write, and one hopes thinking Americans heed the warning and do what is best for the country. I have a few typos in the article. I kind of wrote it rather quickly when I was sitting down at Starbucks, so forgive those little typos, but we're going to go to the phone. 281412 is going to be the first caller on the line. Who do I have the honor of speaking to? 281412, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
This is Ray.
Hey, Ray, how you doing? Talk to me.
I'm doing pretty good. So I was listening to the article, I was listening to the conversation, and the problem is the Democratic Party. The problem is the Republican Party, totally. They talk about vote blind for Democrats. Democrats bought us the Affordable Care Act, which has been horrible in many respects. I think the kind of what the goal was decent, but how they got there was horrible. And see, the Independent Party includes people like Bernie Sanders,
right,
who gave us the solution for health, the only solution that's going to work for health care. And so one of the reasons why we get these extremes is because we keep going for parties.
Correct.
Even at times I see people, a party will put something out there that the people don't even believe in on both sides, and the people will absorb that policy and say, hey, yeah, that's right. You know, I'm a dreamer. I'm a black guy in America. I'm a dreamer, too. I have dreams of being involved in the capitalism, of making money, creating jobs and opportunities. I have these dreams, but I'm also held back because of that's in place. So, you know, I noticed that there was an immigration policy put out there. I thought it represented the best opportunity there is. You're talking about a negotiation where nobody got everything they wanted. They had a path to citizenship. It also said I got to build a wall.
Let me.
What was wrong with that?
Let me interrupt you a quick second because I want to clarify something about the immigration law. The immigration law, on the surface, to many, may seem that way. Well, it seems like a negotiation, but what you had in that bill, or those suggestions from Trump, was to reduce immigration drastically, and immigration in a format that would hurt people of color around the world coming to this country. In other words, they were using the DACA folk as a bargaining chip to ensure that the new people coming into this country were mostly white. That is what that bargain was. As a black man, now that I'm telling you that, I am pretty sure you cannot support that. Secondly,
I haven't seen the details.
I understand that. That's why
I'd like to see that.
Sure, I understand that. You can look it up online if you will, my dear friend. But that is the reality of the bill that Trump would like you to support. In fact, he even made it sweeter by saying, "Nah, we don't even need to worry about 900,000 DACA. We're going to pump it up to 1.8 million of them that can stay here," because they understand that with the changes in the law, with removing the lottery, with reducing the amount of people that can come in, with reducing the amount of what they like to call chain migration, I call family reunification migration, by reducing all those things, because there's currently a preponderance of people of color coming into this country, because most of the world encompasses people of color. Most of the world is not white. Most of the worlds are gradations of color, of which white is one of them. And so you can have no policy that we as a country who was formed on sin to somehow have an immigration policy that again tries to do or renew what was this country before, sir. Now, when it comes to what you had to say about Obamacare, let me finish with the Obamacare.
So one of the issues is...
Yeah, let me finish though, sir. You made a comment about Obamacare that I don't want to get too much in the weeds before you bring up a new subject. As far as Obamacare is concerned, I am with you. Obamacare in a lot of ways is a disaster, but in a lot of ways it was a savior. I can tell you personally, there's a good possibility it saved my life because, again, when I've always had health care as a private employer. I've always had my own company. So I've been paying all of these high bills for the last 20-something years myself, but I've always had insurance. But at the same time, I used very little of it for fear that the next time I renewed, it would be denied. When Obamacare came into place, because of all the protections that it applied, I then was able to do things like colonoscopies and other things that actually found things that got alleviated because of the Affordable Care Act. Yes, the implementation was horrendous. It was horrendous because we're a capitalist society who still believes that somehow healthcare is a product as opposed to healthcare being a right. Now, that is going to take some time to get over, but I tell you what, the step that we laid out with Obamacare was what I call a rocky road getting ready to be paved. So, I mean, it is on you and me and everybody else to not allow them to slide back to where we were, but to grow to move up on what we have right now. Continue, my friend.
So I have to tell you, on Affordable Care, the thing that it did that was not so good was it drove so much of private practice out, driving costs up significantly. That was a bad thing. Bernie Sanders is the one guy that had the solution to that. It says single payer. Let's get rid of all these insurance companies that just sit up here driving up the cost, making the health coverage a gamble. He had the answer to that, in my opinion, and that was what I supported. From the other
I can't disagree with anything that you've just said.
The grassroots, go ahead.
I can't disagree with what you've just said because the answer is single payer, and not only is it single payer, but universal health care, but it's also deeper than that. One of the reasons our system is so corrupt as well is my daughter is in med school right now. She's going to get, just from her med school bill, she's going to get out of college in debt for about $500,000. We need to have educate people that are willing to be doctors that can do the course should be able to go to school free of charge and pay it back by working at a reasonable but high wage in the economy. I mean, there are a lot of things that we could do, but the reason we don't do it is because the few people that profit from student loans, the few people that profit from having a misguided healthcare system are the ones who are taking the money that they're pilfering from us to pay off the politicians to allow this. And one of the reasons for my program, Politics Done Right and Others, is to show people that they can have the power to change that. Right now, power is money. The reality is your vote costs nothing. But if we can educate you, if we can educate us all, we can have all the power that these lobbyists give to these politicians, make it moot. And if we make it moot, we can elect the type of progressives that would supply us with the exact policies that you, sir, are talking about.
Right. Now, but again, we go back into our political corners.
Yes.
And we embrace things that even we disagree with. We embrace them, and we own them. At a certain point, they teach us the
Give me an
party
example
line,
to that. What
and
example?
we own that.
Give me an example of
Things
what
we
you're
don't
saying.
agree with, we start to agree with.
I want an example of what you're saying. You're saying we hold on to position because as a progressive liberal, if somebody, I don't care if it comes from a conservative, if they give me some information that kind of makes more sense than what I have, I'm going to switch on a dime. So please give me an example of some partisans that are going to hold on to a value even though they know it's wrong.
Here's you may relate to this a little bit, especially from the right side, from the conservative side. When they watch Fox News in the morning, and by 1 o'clock they own that position like they thought of it themselves.
Yes, you're right about that.
They don't even recognize it's not an organic thought. It was something that was planted in their head. And the same thing, similar thoughts happening over in the Democrat, just not as extreme as we would think of it. But it's the same thing. I like if you've got a difference on the immigration policy, it's because you may have read some details that have not been I haven't seen yet. All right, so you get a chance to come out and say that, and then say why. All right, but there are people out there just because it came from one party, they're against it, and they think that they will give you the reason that the big party machine tells you to, and they'll own that decision as though it was an organic thought.
Let me tell you something,
and
Ray.
There's not a whole lot of organic thinking coming along out there.
No, I am not going to argue with that, but let me tell you something that is interesting because when you said that, I just lost my train of thought. But I can tell you one thing: you're correct that a lot of times that is how people behave. But what I try to do is I try to be objective in the way that I am, in the way that I think and the way that I process things. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay. I understand. Now, I want to tell you something. The grassroots position on immigration, I want to hear more about what you were talking about that was not spoken. I heard pieces of it, and I remember how I heard them floating out. But we American middle-incomers, like I'm in technology, I'm also familiar with many other facets of what the middle class is facing.
Right.
We are under extreme attack by jobs being sent out of this country or people coming over into this country getting those jobs. And they're not all picking fruit.
Now, I understand what you're saying.
A lot of our jobs are being, somebody else has them.
That is a classic thing. That is a classic thing that people talk about, right? We don't. Here's what we've done. First of all, in technology, it is true that those E1B visas, I think is what they're called, to bring people into the country to go ahead and take jobs that some people say other Americans could be doing or that they're lowering the wages. We have to take those concerns seriously. And 210, I'm coming to you next, but we have to take those concerns seriously. However, I think it's important for you to understand that the reality is if our economy was structured appropriately, we could incorporate these. First of all, it is true that technologically speaking, we do have a shortage of a lot of people in a lot of different fields. We have that shortage because we don't give the scholarships and appropriate education to people so that those fields are homegrown. It is cheaper for us to allow other countries to educate their people, either by sending them here or educating them abroad, and then we hire in them. We don't pay the taxes necessary to educate them, and at the same time, we don't have to pay them a lot because a lot of times they come from countries where when they see the salaries they get here, they're happy with. So I'm going to keep you online, but I want to get to 210, and then we'll come back on the subject. Okay, Ray?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see, 210. I think this is John. John?
Yes, it is. How you doing, Egberto?
All right, come on in, my friend.
Yes, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let me address the article by Benjamin Wittes first, and what was the other guy's name? I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. But
Roush, I think, is his name. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that they're actually, going against Trump. But I really don't respect those guys at all, just like I don't respect David Frum and William the Bloody Crystal, and, I never watch Nicole Wallace. I never watch any of those Republicans at all. I mean, I'm glad they're going against Trump, but, at the core, they believe in this this inequality that has been gripping our country.
Right.
And they don't try to fight against that. And what he's saying against partisanship is the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard in the Witness article. You know, I mean, that's so ridiculous. I mean, the center has failed us completely. Now, I disagree with Ray in saying that, you know, we need to have an independent party. There is no independent party that has any power. And if you've studied, you know, Western countries from politics from around the world, you understand that you know you have to form coalitions. And right now, what I see on the left is everybody totally demeaning Democrats. And yes, they definitely have a problem with money in politics. But what are you going to do? Start another party so the left is divided and let Republicans rule for 30 years? That's what I call the 30-year plan.
Right.
Which is basically let's divide, have the left divided, so we can let Republicans rule for the next 30 years, even though we are the majority.
Now,
I
want to stop you right there a second.
What we need to do is win elections.
Right.
And that's what, you know, our revolution, Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, that's what that's all about. And, you know, when they asked Bernie Sanders, are you going to run as an independent? He said, no, I don't want to be a spoiler. I don't want to let Republicans win. That's why he's running in the Democratic Party. And if you look at all of these other people, you know, that our revolution talks about, I mean, there may be, you know, a handful out of you know, hundreds of people that our revolution endorsed last year that are actually not Democrats, but 99% of them are Democrats, and they're trying to change the Democratic Party. And the way to power, you know, the way to power is actually, you can't do anything unless you have power, and to have power, you actually have to win elections. And so, you know, having a circular firing squad among the left does not accomplish anything besides making sure you will lose elections.
Now, let me come back at that, because I think it's important that I get in here. First of all, nothing that I do is promoting a circular firing squad, as you know. You listen to my program all the times. By the same token, I think it is important for, you know, in order for us to get the right candidates, just like our revolution candidates, the Justice Democrats candidates, brand new Congress Democrats, and all these guys that are going and do the work that needs to be done. A lot of times we have to let folks know exactly what's occurring within the establishment of the Democratic Party, and you, as well as I do, know exactly what's going on. The fact that these two guys mentioned the center as being confused, it doesn't mean the center is confused. It means the center is ineffective. The funny thing about it is, as I mentioned before, the center of the Democratic Party is not a center party at all. It is a moderate Republican Party, period. And it is also a, you know, but what I'm saying is, if whatever candidate comes out of these parties is the one, I mean, people don't like to say the best of both evils or whatever the case is. That is just what you have to do until, as you just said, you gain power. How do you gain power? Now is when you gain power. The people that you put up to run and the people that you support, that's how you gain power. But the other way that you gain power is education. And that is really, really hammering programs like mine, programs like having people like you on air, having people like Ray on here who come out and talk about this stuff and try to make it somewhat interesting to the folks who are listening out there. You know, that is what we have to do. And that, by the way, folks, that's why I tell you, share these programs, because you may just listen to 5-10 minutes of it or whatever, and some other person that you share it with may listen to another different 10 minutes of it. Those little snippets, those little things that people get, these bits of information here and there from programs that are trying their utter best to make us more politically educated, it'll make a difference over the long haul. But we have to do, all of us have to do our part. Let me bring Ray back in. See if Ray wants to respond to John. Go ahead, Ray.
No, you know, I know that the winner is going to be between Democrats and Republicans. It's not going to be that third-party candidate, but that independent thought process is what we need to keep. And the independent thought process is what we get away from. At the end of President Obama's term in office, America had a choice. Do we want to continue on with policies similar to that, or do we want to? Have you been affected in a way that that's worked for you, or do you want to see change? And there were enough people out there that says it hasn't helped me. I don't have a job. I don't have this, and I don't have that. I feel like I'm being disenfranchised or left out. I'm going to vote in a different direction, and that's partially why, if depending on what they come up with on the Russians, that's partially why we made the switch, or the country made the switch. I put it like that, because either way it goes.
Ray,
you're talking about the
can I ask you a personal question?
Two evils.
Ray, let me ask you a personal question.
It's acceptable to Americans.
Ray, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me, how did you?
Doesn't matter who I voted for.
No, I know, but I was asking because when you made certain statements, it kind of gave me the idea that you did, and I'd like to know as a. Okay, let me first ask you a few questions because do you think?
But let's pretend I did. Let's pretend I did.
I thought you said you did.
Okay, let's pretend I did just so we could advance the conversation.
Right.
Because I want to hear where you want to go.
Yeah, but I thought you said you did. You said you did or you didn't.
No, I said let's pretend I did.
Okay.
I said it doesn't matter who I voted for.
All right, let me ask you this.
Donald Trump is in office right now, and there's one thing about Donald Trump being in office that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's making some black people wake up to the fact that we need some change, and we're going to have to get up and make that happen.
Okay.
Some of them are waking up to that point, that fact.
What's causing them to wake up, in your opinion?
Well, because of his, the terse words he talks about race, when he just called Africa, the words that he used there, and some other things that he's coming after some of these programs. Some of them are going to wake up, and some of them may just have to die on the vine.
Okay.
That wake-up call is what we need.
Okay. So,
because what we've been doing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was still trying to figure out if you voted for him, and if you did, what was your rationale for doing so?
Let me just like Michelle Obama said, I finally got somebody I could vote for. I finally had somebody I could really vote for when Bernie Sanders was in the race.
Yes. Okay.
I had somebody that I could go out and vote for. I'll tell you this: I could never vote for Hillary Clinton running for office. One thing, look at what the DNC did as a party to Mr. Sanders, or to Bernie Sanders. I've listened to Bernie Sanders for years on satellite radio. It's in his, what he was saying was in his blood.
Yes.
You're not going to hardly change that. Now, look at what the Clinton machinery did, the DNC and the Clinton machinery did to him. That was wrong, okay? That denied us the choice, and that's why we got who we got right now.
No, but I want to explore this a little further because this is what I had. This is a discussion that I had on Daily Coast with a whole lot of Berniacs as well, and that is I wasn't only a Bernie supporter. I was also a Bernie delegate in Philly. Okay, and when it was time for the general election, I'll tell everybody I voted for Hillary Clinton. Do I like Hillary Clinton? No, but had Hillary Clinton won, the Affordable Care Act would not be in trouble, and it would give us time to get more progressives elected to get single payer. Had Hillary Clinton won, we wouldn't have had the tax situation that we have right now that is actually going to put many social programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid in jeopardy. Because now that they passed this bill, they're not going to reverse it. Even if Democrats take over again, they'll be so scared to go up to be labeled raising taxes that they won't undo this bill. So the only thing that's in trouble is a huge deficit that's going to cost everybody in the long run with the type of inflation and prices, or they're going to cut the social programs that we know everybody depend on. So my thing is, politics is a pragmatic sport, right? I don't like a whole lot of people that I vote for, but I do a calculated analysis based on what would be the result of having the other person win. And that is how I made my calculations. That's how I told folks on the Daily Coast I suggested they voted. I'd like to hear your alternative, sir.
Let me tell you what I say about that. I have been in Houston since 1970.
Yes, sir.
We have been run by Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
They have We have been so excluded economically in this country.
Do you mean black people or
until it
what?
is absolutely mind blowing.
Okay.
When I say excluded, when we're getting 2%, 3% of the contracts in business, not by any. I can tell you from my test in technology, it is just denied. We are just denied access to that opportunity. I found after observations and study, I'm voting for someone else to win, not for us to win. And I don't appreciate that one bit.
Okay, I think what you said, what you just said, has a whole lot of merit. And let me tell you something that was occurring, and I'm not sure if it's occurred yet. So I'm not going to give specifically the name. I hadn't seen the results from last night yet, but I am about, based on the endorsements that a particular Our Revolution group has made in this election, for this election here in 2018, I'm about to go all out on a particular Our Revolution group if it turns out they endorse whom they seem to have wanted to endorse. And I'm going to make a national issue out of it because it follows some of what you have just said there. That is, different groups supporting the Democratic Party over and over again. And then when it comes to releasing the spoils, many times within that same party, it only go to white men. And there was a particular incident with Our Revolution, and that is Bernie's group. Remember, Bernie's group has been accused of being Bernie, Bernie Bros and all of that I fought against while I was working with the Bernie campaign, fighting against people talking about it being the Bernie Bro type of thing, fighting against it being it's exclusionary to minorities, etc., etc., etc. And I made a plea to this particular group based on giving them fact-based information as far as the candidates that they suggest that they were going to endorse. And so far, I don't know what the results of that endorsement is, but if what I believe was about to occur occurs, it not only gives credence to what you're saying, which is absolutely true, but it means that we have to act on it, but we have to act on it now. Not in the general. We have to act on it now. Continue, sir.
I agree. I am no longer in position to be voting for crumbs of crumbs because at one time it was crumbs. Now it's gotten down to, as they've gotten more minorities or whatever in, now we're down to crumbs. I'm not voting for that policy anymore. Sometimes I will go and vote for other people on the ticket. But I'm going to vote for one.
Right.
Sometimes I will just not vote in a particular race.
Let me let John come in here because John is going to say something. I know I kind of have an idea what John is going to say to that, and I think it's similar to what I told you, and that is, I think still we don't fight for crumbs. So right now is the time that we should be activating those people who were harmed themselves by the Democratic Party so that they pick the right people. But let me get John in the conversation. John, come on in.
Yeah, voting is not about purity. Voting is about helping other people. And, it drives me crazy to hear what this guy, Ray, is saying, because, I mean, this is a mounting part of the left who feels this. This is a growing movement that feels this way, and people like Jimmy Dore on TYT are leading this movement, and all the people on the YouTube channels are doing the same thing. All they do is bash Democrats, and essentially what they're doing is they're giving away their power to Trump, and they're giving away their power to the Republicans to make it worse for everybody. Now, I'm a Bernie supporter just like all three of us are, but what I'm trying to do is talk about, elections, and I know that's not the theme today. But, I mean, you're talking about our revolution. Give me a little hint about that. Is that a senatorial endorsement, or is this a congressional endorsement?
Believe it or not, this is an endorsement for a judge. But let me just give a little caveat to the message. I put it out there, but I'm not going to name any names because, again, I don't have the full information yet. But as soon as I get it, I will make it a national story. But here's the deal. We have a young white man who has very little experience in the law, and we have a bit older young woman of color and not of the Christian religion, okay? And when it was time to, and by the way, I know them both. And when it was time to pick, I studied on one, I know the other one personally. And when it was time to make the choice, they didn't give the woman of color not even a hearing, not even a call back to come in and make her case, in as much as the evidence was there that she is the most qualified of the two people running. Before everything got heated, I made a call to the leaders of the group, making that case and pointing that out, and also letting them know that it would be a case that I will make against the group if that particular thing occurred, if they endorsed the wrong person based on, after having all the information. And the problem with it, John, is similar to what Ray alluded to. It's always, there's always one particular group asked to make that sacrifice for the good of everybody else. And in as much as I disagree with Ray in regards to some of the big picture items, I understand doing it in certain areas because, again, it's a constancy that has been with the Democratic Party and a lot of minorities, and specifically women of color. You take a look in Harris County right now, and you see the issue. You can see that issue plainly with these types of divisions that progressive groups shouldn't have. You see it at Netroots Nation. When I went out to I go to Netroots Nations every year, and I have to make too many speeches to individual groups telling them this is not how progressive think. I mean, when Black Lives Matter made Bernie Sanders add social justice to his platform that very night, in other words, in 2015, when Black Lives Matter interrupted Bernie Sanders, that afternoon, Bernie Sanders didn't get mad. Bernie Sanders knew who he was. He just knew that his platform needed to change because it didn't accentuate a lot of what it needed to. And by that night, he gave the speech to Netroots Nation in the afternoon. By that night, he gave the speech to 15,000 people. And those 15,000 people heard a new part of his speech. That is what change is all about. And with regards to what Ray has to say, those are the kinds of things that need to be done. And I think it needs to be done now, not when we coalesce for the group. I do everything to ensure that we coalesce when it comes to the general. But during these primaries, all this stuff have to be aired out. Go ahead, Ray, and then John.
Can I make one comment though?
Okay,
I just want to say that
yes.
When I'm looking at candidates, what I deal with are issues,
right.
And I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. If you have issues that I believe in, I will vote for you.
Let me respond to that directly.
I won't.
And that's the way it should be. And let me respond to you. There is another case with this same particular Our Revolution with a white woman who was on my show on Politics Done Right at KPFT, who did not even get a call back either. And guess who got the call back? The person who did not support our litmus test issue, which is Medicare for all. This woman supports Medicare for all, and believe it or not, they didn't even give her a hearing either until she decided to write a long letter detailing her progressive bona fide, something that guy didn't have to do. And to date, I don't know who got the green light from this group either. But again, we will be watching it, and whatever the results are, we will be making it known. Let me get Ray in, and then I'll come back to you, John. Ray, come on in.
Okay, so I grew up in Houston, Democrat for years, blind Democrat, just voting either straight ticket or voting for just Democrat politicians.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to look at the data, when I started looking at the economics of it, and I went and I actually tested it by coming up with solutions and wanting to present them to Democrat leadership, I saw the game then being played. I saw what was really going on. And when they talk about we don't have capacity, If you keep cutting us out, you diminish our capacity. And so I look at the city of Houston when they're doing 2-3% of the contracts with blacks, which make up about 26% of the population. Anglos 3% more. They're getting 80%, over 80% of the contract dollars. When you look at the black schools being closed, some of them were very well performing, and they closed them with lies. The board, the superintendent put those schools forward for closure. I'm saying there comes a time when I have to not look at the party. I have to look at what's happening on the ground, and I have to have change, because insanity would be doing the same thing over and over again.
Oh, no, I agree. No, Ray, I can't argue it. Look, I can't argue with that. Now, a lot of those local issues that you're talking about can be replicated in a lot of other cities. But I think I have a feeling you're the person that I spoke to earlier this weekend, judging from the two subjects that you brought up.
Yes.
And let me go ahead and say one thing to that, right? I've mentioned to you the complicity of the black church and the complicity of the black supposedly intelligentsia here in Houston, Texas, who form a cabal that works with a whole bunch of groups where they make deals, and you just ain't part of that set of deals. And what you have to do is vote those folks out. The problem is when you, and I won't name names of these particular Democratic candidates right now, but when they get on the ballot here in Houston or in Harris County, they are the ones that are always elected because they have a core amount of people, and enough of you are not out there educating people to an alternative. So what I have to say is I don't want to, what you're saying is absolutely true, but I don't want to generalize that in such a manner that we hurt ourselves nationally. Those are problems that we have to take care of locally, not only in Houston but in Baltimore, not only in Baltimore but in that place in New Jersey. And there are a lot of places that we need to do that, but we are the ones who have to take the ball and run in that section of politics. All right? Let me get to John.
But they become national. You're right.
Yes.
But they become national. When you hit too many places, it becomes national by default.
Right, but again, what I'm saying, a lot of these issues I don't consider it a Democratic Party problem. I consider it a sell-out problem. In other words, your own people selling you out. That's pretty much what I want to say. Let me get to John, and then we close this baby up. Come on, John. You got about 30 seconds before I ask you for a closing statement.
Okay, I just want to remind people, all you have to do is look at voting records in the 21st century and compare them historically to just about any other period in our history, post-Civil War, rather. And this is the most polarized electorate we have. And the reason we have this polarized electorate is because the Republicans are so awful. And this is getting back to the theme of the blog of the week. They are incredibly awful. And yes, the Republicans are too dependent on money. And yes, they do need to change their politics. And yes, I want to see Bernie Kratz win. But in the long run, we cannot have a party that's divided to have Republicans keep doing terrible things to the environment, keep doing terrible things to our educational system, keep doing terrible things to our tax system so we're underfunded and the social safety net is cut out. I mean, just look at the voting records of Democrats versus Republicans. It is extremely different. And to say that they're all the same is just not factually correct.
I don't think anybody here...
Just look at the voting records.
John?
It's easy to do.
Yeah, John, I don't think anybody here will dispute what you just said. Let me get to Ray now for his closing statement because we're almost out of time. Ray? 30 seconds.
I agree with John in some respects. But either party wins, black people are losing. America is in a trouble spot because we keep swinging from left to right to left to right. But we keep swinging lower and lower, and we're going to keep on swinging until we fall. We completely fail, I'm afraid. I wish that didn't have to happen, but it looks like that's where we're going because neither party is really looking out for the middle class.
Thank you so kindly, Ray. Thank you so kindly, John, for coming with the show. We have a lot more to talk about, and that's why it's a daily show, and we'll continue to talk about this. We'll continue to discuss this. So please, folks, keep calling. I'd like to get more callers, and I'd like to get more sharing on the show, and get more people involved, because that is what we do. That's what we intend to do. That's what we want to do, and that's what we're here for. My name is Egberto Willies, and this is Politics Done Right. Please remember to share, and if you have the wherewithal, remember these shows, we do require your support. So as best you can, please support these shows. This is all we do to ensure that we can really supply a politics that serves us all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.